As the comedy team of Colonel Stoopnagle and Bud might have put it, this is a picture of the grass, which on the other side of the fence always looks greener. And there's more truth than humor in that old gag. For example, in any town or city you'd care to name, you might be surprised how much better a business on the other side of the street looks to some people. As a case in point, let's drop in on the fellow who runs this paint store and listen to what he has to say.
The trouble with this business is I don't have enough variety. If you want paint, I can sell you paint. And when I've sold you the paint, that's that until you need some more. Oh, granted, it could be you need a new brush, some linseed oil, a drop cloth, or maybe even a stepladder. But that's not much of a variety of things to sell. Now, you take that men's clothing store across the street. There's variety for you. If I had as many items to sell as he does, I'd be in clover up to my knees, maybe higher.
Well, just for kicks, suppose we step across the street and find out how deep the clover is in the men's shop.
The trouble with this business is I have no way of knowing what a customer might need, in addition to what he came in to buy in the first place. About all I can do is suggest a related item. Suppose you buy a couple of shirts. It's a natural to suggest a couple of new ties. If it's new shoes, I'll mention new socks. But I can't very well cover every item in the store. Of course, this will never happen. But if a man brought his entire wardrobe into the store, then I could find out exactly what he needed, and we'd both gain. He'd have everything he needs. I'd have a satisfied customer and an extra $1 or $2 in the till. Now, you take that car dealership across the street. They've got the very thing going for them that I wish I had going for me. When a car drives into their service department, the owner brings with him everything the car needs in the way of service, not just what he came in for. Imagine having business like that delivered right to your door.
Yes, the grass is always greener to somebody else, isn't it? From across the street, the service department looks like a money tree to our friend in the men's shop. But he's never had to suffer through the jitters and frustration of the early morning rush hour when everybody wants to be first. He's never gotten his hands as grimy or skinned his knuckles so many times in the course of a working day. He's never had the safety of human lives depend on his technical skill and mechanical ability. But give him credit for one thing. He spotted opportunity. What was it he said? Imagine having business like that delivered right to your door. Let's think about that for a minute. Service customers come in all sizes, shapes, and weights, but most of them have one thing in common. With a few exceptions, most of them will buy a new car somewhere, sometime in the future. Naturally, we'd all like that somewhere to be our dealership. In the meantime, each one of them represents service dollars. Money that will be spent somewhere on their present car for maintenance and repairs until they are ready to trade. Whether they choose to invest these service dollars and their future new car dollars with us or with somebody else is important not only to the success and growth of the dealership, but also to the continued security of our own particular job and the personal income that goes along with it. With this in mind, keeping as many customers as possible in what we might call a buying cycle is a responsibility shared largely by everyone in the service department. However, this calls for more than offering the good service any customer expects, which includes quality workmanship, fair prices, and the work done when promised. In addition, it calls for selling the customer extra service when needed. Over and above the work he requests, this could include an extra service that'll make his car perform better, so he'll get more satisfaction out of owning and driving it. An extra service that will prevent trouble and perhaps save him a more expensive job later on. Or an extra service that will make his car safer or more dependable to operate. The truth of the matter is, the average owner doesn't know enough about his car to realize when he is in need of extra service to keep from having trouble. And when it's handled the right way, Most owners appreciate having the needed service brought to their attention. Just as we do, they too like doing business where people show an interest in them. In this connection, however, there's nothing in store but trouble and a drop-off in regular customers for any outfit that tries to sell an owner service he can get along just as well without. On the other hand, underselling can be almost as fatal as overselling, even from the customer's viewpoint. The shop that does only what the customer asks for, without making the effort to perform a complete service, stands a chance of losing out in the long run. Few things irritate a customer more than paying a repair bill one day only to have trouble crop up with something else on the car a day or two later. Now, in all fairness, you could argue that the shop did what the customer wanted done, and that's true. But the point is, if they had at least made an attempt to discover if this customer's car needed more service than he thought it did, the trouble might have been found, fixed, and avoided. So if we're really serious about wanting to keep as many customers as possible in the buying cycle, it's not a case of too much or too little and too late, but a sensible, conscientious job of uncovering and selling the extra service an owner actually needs. And as we'll see in a moment, this is more than a one-man job. It all starts, of course, with the man who writes the order. Because he understands human nature and knows more about automobiles than his customers do, he assumes that every car may be guilty of needing more service than its owner is asking for. Sometimes an extra service item comes to light merely by asking, "Is there anything else we can take care of, Mr. Jones?" Not what you'd call an earth-shaking idea, to be sure. Yet it may help the customer to remember something else that he had every intention of having done but had forgotten about. Now, if this seems so elementary that it's not worth mentioning, how much extra business do you figure might be lost if the question was never asked of any service customer? Could add up to quite a respectable figure, couldn't it? It's a recognized fact, of course, that the odometer is the best silent salesman a service department can have. Checking the mileage reading against the certified car care maintenance services, or the dates and mileage on a lubrication sticker, often shows a real need for extra service. Sitting behind the wheel to get the odometer reading, instead of leaning into the car to get it, is another way to uncover additional items that should be taken care of. In a matter of seconds, a quick check can be made of brake pedal travel, or clutch pedal free play if the car's a stick shift. The parking brake, lights, and windshield wipers can be switched on and off, and the horn tested. Now, even if this doesn't turn up a thing, a procedure like this is bound to impress the customer, especially when the order writer tells him, "Just a routine check I make on every car, Mr. Jones." And taking the checking idea one step farther, wouldn't it make good business sense to recommend the certified car care 10-point safety check to the owner of every car that comes in for service? After all, safety is a year-round proposition. These are some of the ways in which an order can be written, with an eye open for the extras at the same time. But as we said, it's no one-man job. Everybody has to help if it's going to pay off. Take a technician with a transmission job, for example. Now, after he gets the car up on the hoist, wouldn't he be doing himself, the shop, and the customer a favor by taking a minute to check out at least the muffler, tailpipe, and brake lines, with the possibility of finding a needed service that the owner doesn't know about? The same idea applies to practically any job. For instance, whenever the front wheel bearings are being checked or repacked, the condition of the brake linings can be examined at the same time. Anytime the hood is up, wiring, belts, radiator hose, and so on can be looked over for telltale signs of trouble. Even the man on the wash rack, who gets a close look at every inch of paint, sheet metal, glass, and brightwork, is in a position to spot possible work the owner may have overlooked. The whole point is, every man in the shop can help while doing the work called for on the repair order, if only he will take a look for possible service needs near the spot where he's working. It's no more complicated than that. When a needed service is found, of course, and the owner is contacted, there's a good chance of selling him on having the work done while the car is in the shop. Now, do the results justify the small amount of extra effort? Let's look at it this way. It's a fundamental fact that selling extra needed service means more items per repair order, and that adds up to better earnings per job. However, important as this has been in the past, in this day of the stretched out service interval, it's more important than ever that these extra needs be uncovered and sold if we want our paychecks to stay healthy. However, let's not lose sight of the fact that overselling can kill the only source of steady income we have, and that's the customer. But if we really want to cut the mustard and keep as many customers as possible in the buying cycle, there's nothing unusual about what it takes, and we all know the answer. Quality work, fair prices, promises that are kept, and an eye open for the customer's extra needs. That's what helps to build repeat business with the customers we have. And that's what helps to create new business through the favorable word-of-mouth advertising that only a satisfied customer can broadcast. Now, if these are desirable goals, why is it some shops never quite reach them? Perhaps the biggest single difference between a service department that has built up a healthy following of steady customers for the dealership and a service department where business could stand a good shot in the arm is people. Important as the facilities, tools, and equipment are, it's the people who work there who make the difference. And perhaps the biggest single difference between the people who work in each of these two service departments is attitude. While their experience and skill must be considered, it is still largely a matter of attitude that makes the difference. Because when you come right down to it, what these people do to help increase dealership profit and personal earnings, anybody in the business can do. But first, there has to be a willingness to regard the customer as the most vital source of steady income we have, in spite of the fact that he can be a tough cookie at times. A willingness to want to provide a complete service, the kind we would appreciate if we were the customer. And to do that, a willingness to admit that maybe doing just a little more than the job actually calls for really isn't such a corny idea after all. And when an outfit comes around to this way of thinking, you find a group of people who realize that selling extra needed service is everybody's job. So everybody sells because everybody makes a habit of keeping an eye open for the extras on every car they handle. And when you stop to think about it, that kind of a habit can become profit-forming for all of us.